Well, I have no idea what day it is, what time it is. Here in Japan, you're in London and Vegas.
Yeah.
It doesn't, yeah,
Yeah, we just both got off a meeting, a work meeting, and so yeah, that was a Vegas time. I think it was 11 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock in the morning for John. It's almost 9 o'clock at night for me. And yeah, this is I think this is the first time we've ever done this when neither of us have been on the
no, that's right.
continent and actually tried to pull this off. So John's going back to Las Vegas tomorrow. I left Las Vegas like I don't know 20 hours ago or so now.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do an expedited holiday special podcast tonight. And first off, happy holidays to you, John.
Happy holidays, yes.
Yeah. So are you going to be in Las Vegas, back in Las Vegas for Christmas? Or are you
Yeah,
guys going to
I'll start
be going
making
somewhere else? Or
yep, I'll start making my way back to Vegas my tomorrow, which is your yesterday or something. So, yeah,
well,
no,
the funny thing is I'm a lot closer to your time zone now.
yeah, true. That's right.
If
Yeah.
you're really thinking about it, because it's Saturday morning there, it's pretty late on Friday here, so we're getting closer. But any special plans
No,
for
other than
Christmas
just
or
spending time with family in Vegas, with our boys and their
yeah,
fiancés, and that's the priority is family
awesome,
time.
awesome. That'll be fun, and hopefully getting some riding and some running and some swimming in.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
Yep,
and I think that's what we want to chat about is how do you
exactly.
enjoy the spirit of the holidays? How do you enjoy family time and not get negatively neurotic about training? And I think
Yep,
that's
yep.
it's a good topic to sort of visit at this time.
Yeah, it's really an interesting one, right? Like, there's always going to be times in your life when training and the balance between training and family and work, and training really needs to take a back seat,
Hmm.
depending on your situation, right? And I think that in particular, like this week and next week, there's a lot going on. There's work parties, there's spouses' work parties, there's family obligations, and I really wanted to kind of talk about like, you know, the balance that you have around this time of year, and that it's funny because the people that I coach, for the most part, I've told them all like, you know what, if you miss some training sessions during the next couple of weeks, it's okay. There's not one training session or even 2 or 3 training sessions that are going to make or break you at this time of year.
Right.
Especially we talk about triathlon, where most people, the first major triathlon is not till, for us on our side of the country, is not till Oceanside, right? So taking some time now to prioritize family and friends and other commitments, I think is imperative. So, John, how have you handled it historically?
So I'll even go into this trip, which I usually do this trip right around the holiday season. And it's always nice because I did my last big race right before this trip. And so on one hand, it gives me a little peace to pause my training because I just finished a race and I'm going through a recovery process. So sometimes if you can time an event around the holidays so that you're doing your event and then you walk into your holiday season as sort of a recovery period, sometimes that takes off the pressure of feeling like we need to get out and do a swim, bike, or run. And then the other thing that I do, especially on a trip like this, is I try to work in training in non-traditional ways. So I walk a lot
Mm-hmm.
and I carry a backpack,
Yeah,
which is weighted down. And instead of, getting out of the subway and taking the escalator up, I'll take the stairs. I'll take the stairs up. I'll take the stairs down. And so I'm always looking for opportunities to move and build in some natural, non-traditional type of training.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. And then, like, how about specifically right around the holidays with your family, and like, how do you fit in training?
So with that, I try not to make my training the priority. That for the holiday
Yep.
season, it's getting together with family, getting together with friends, and enjoying those connections. And we always talk about on this podcast how triathlon should be bringing value to our lives. And we don't want to use triathlon training as a negative, or we don't want that to accidentally become a negative. So I check with the schedule, when are we eating, where are we eating, who's doing what, because some of the fun of the holidays is just those natural organic conversations you have in the kitchen while something's being prepared, and you don't want to miss those. And so, you just have to time, if you do need to go out for a run or a bike or a swim, if you can find an open pool, it's just a matter of understanding what the schedule is, and not trying to figure out a rigorous holiday schedule so you can say, well, I've got 45 minutes here, I'm going to go do something. Trying to be very flexible and aware that the organic conversations are probably some of the best conversations to try to have, and you don't want to miss those.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the other thing I think is looking at things like maybe you don't do the long ride, right?
Mhm.
Instead, you do something,
Yeah.
on the weekend. Maybe you do a short interval session, and you really push yourself for like 45 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And you still get a lot out of that, but it's not you're gone the whole morning.
Right.
Or even same thing with a lot of people do long runs. They do 2-hour runs. Instead of that, you do a 45-minute and you throw some intensity, do some hill repeats or something like that. And the other thing, when I used to go to Canada, I don't go to Canada anymore at Christmas. I used to go every year. I'd get up really early on Christmas morning before everyone else got up, and I'd go for a run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it was so peaceful Christmas morning. I was the only person out on the street.
Yeah.
Usually there was a lot of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
And it was just like my Zen time, because it's like the one day that there was no traffic.
Yeah.
And so like, but I'd get up really early. Like I'd be up at like 6:30, 7 in the morning. Okay, so not really early. For Christmas morning, that's early.
Yeah.
But my family would get up and moving until like, 8:30 or 9. And it'd be done, and I'd be coming in the door, and the coffee would just be on. Like it'd be time to start. So I think that there's ways that you can do it, but I think that you are right on in saying that kind of on the cornerstones of our talks have always been to make triathlon a positive impact on your life, and not a negative, and not a burden, not a burden on your family. And and just enjoying some time, especially right now, because really, like I said, no training session is going to make or break you right now.
That's right.
Like, well, actually, it might break you, because no, seriously, if you are going too hard now, right, you shouldn't be hitting PRs right now. And it's kind of a funny story. One of the athletes that I coach hit some PRs this week.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is interesting. What are we doing? Like, why are we hitting PRs now?
Right.
And it's good, right? So I started looking at some of the data, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, yeah, the training volume's been a little bit lower. Maybe we, went a little too deep. And so it's also a time that, if you have the time to also even, we talked about this before too, at the end of the year, assess your year.
Yeah.
Right. So I know that's not prioritizing family or anything like that, but if you do have some extra time, maybe you got a week off of work, you get time off of work, this is also a good opportunity to kind of assess your year and look at some of your metrics, if you keep track of metrics. I know, Johnny, you're not super big on keeping track of all your metrics, because you still write everything down, right?
Well, yeah, I'm avoiding going and looking at my Training Peaks score right now. So.
You and me both. You and me both. Yeah, I will tell you, after my surgery, I got down to like 12, I think.
Nice.
my chronic training load, I think the low I got was 12.
Yeah.
That was hard on my ego.
Yeah. Well, okay, so
but I think that's go ahead.
I was going to say, let me jump in on that point, because I think that's a really good point, that it is hard when we miss training, and sometimes we can get a little grumpy if we're not getting our training in. And so there is the benefit of getting some exercise to where you feel like you're doing something. And so I love this idea of getting up early and doing a run. It's sort of a Zen time. And then, the other way to do this is to encourage other people to exercise with you. And maybe you introduce someone to running or hiking or maybe even, bikes or renting a bike or something. And so sometimes there's a neat way to engage other family or friends in exercise on top of, okay, it's probably, getting out for a 20-minute run, that may actually be a real positive in terms of our mental health around the holidays as well.
One thing I'll tell you, if your spouse resents the fact that you do triathlon, don't buy them a bike for Christmas
Right.
and tell them that you want to go for a bike ride. That's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, right.
Just throwing it out there.
Uh-oh.
Just an idea. Hang on a second. Just unplug this. Sorry, we got a little alarm going off here.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we're in a hotel room and little little things happen.
Well, well, maybe talk
Go ahead, John.
as a coach about the
Yep.
benefits of detraining, because this is that
Yes.
period where we
Oh,
are.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I coached somebody that she competed at the U.S. Nationals in Daytona the same weekend you did Indian Wells.
Yeah.
And she's fortunate enough, she won the national championship for her age group.
Oh.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Super happy for her. And, we wanted to, really think about now prioritizing the run, because that's an area that she struggled with. And she's like, but I don't want to lose my bike fitness.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you have to, right? Like you actually can't maintain this level all of the time. We talk about this, in coaching and exercise physiology as, periodization, right? Where you have to have peaks and valleys. And we've talked about these peaks and valleys before. And ultimately, you have to come down. Like you were saying, like, this is, you're recovering. You're not just recovering from one race, John. You're recovering from the season.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a really hard ego thing, unfortunately, to see this CTL number drop.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Like I wish I wonder if there's a way in Training Peaks for me to actually turn off that. So like for a month,
right.
like an athlete can't see that number. And especially if they know, like, well, in Training Peaks is bad because they call that fitness. And really it's not fitness. It's telling you how much load you put on. And it actually could be a negative thing to have too much, especially for long periods of time. But I've had conversations with athletes. Oh my gosh, like I missed like 3 sessions in the last 2 weeks, and my CTL number is here, and I never like it to drop below this. I'm like, no, you let me deal with that.
Yeah.
Like, but it's hard for people, right? Especially when you have had a successful season, and there's the typical approach, at least with athletes I've dealt with, especially if they've had a successful season, is double down.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, okay, if I just work a little harder, I'll even be more successful. And the truth is that you need to pull back and you need to deload so you can build as you move forward. And that's a hard thing. And then the opposite side, if you didn't have a successful season, right? What do you want to do? I need to train harder now. Like, oh man, I got 4 months to Oceanside. I gotta hit it hard. But really, the situation might have been like you may have been overtraining, and that's part of the reason you didn't have the season you wanted. But so it takes time and it takes evaluation to really figure these things out. And either way, I think that this is still a good time to detrain a little bit.
Well, and it's such a powerful message, because I think and I've seen this where people will train consistently for 12 months and they'll see some positive benefits. And so they'll do it again for another 12 months. And they don't get that recovery period that we're talking about. And all of a sudden they reach a point where they've gone over the edge too far, and now it's hard to really come back and continue with the sport. Because I think you and I talk about this all the time, and you approach it this way as well. We're in this for the lifespan. We're not in this for short gains. And if you train for 12 months, you'll probably see some gains. And then the brain might say, well, okay, we did it that now we got to do it again and again and again. And before you know it, you dig yourself such a deep hole that you do reach a true overtraining status. And that is really hard to overcome or come back from. You really need some extended time off at that point.
But even if it's not overtraining, it could be an injury,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually think that for most age group triathletes, it's really hard to actually get to overtraining syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like when we look at the true numbers that you need, it's for most of the research I read, it's 25, 24, 23 hours per week is kind of like those numbers.
Right.
So most people aren't getting there, but especially as we age, two old guys talking triathlon, um, that that's to me that's the bigger issue is avoiding injury.
Mm-hmm.
And by when you just keep loading more and more and more, eventually you'll break.
Yeah.
And it might, like I said, it might not be true overtraining syndrome, but it just could be like your calf can't handle it anymore.
I would label that overstressed syndrome because it is
Yeah.
all the stress of everything else, including the holidays, the travel that you have to do or what have you. And that's where I've seen this with people who are, this is a bit anecdotal, but they try to push through that and train hard throughout all 12 months. And you can only do that for so long. Something will eventually give out. And so it's a benefit to actually take this holiday season, actually take a step back and let the body recover. I think the other negative part of what we're talking about is this phenomenon called exercise addiction, where it is an addiction and you have to get your exercise in, otherwise you're not going to be a pleasant person to be around. And I think those are things to watch out for and not fall into a trap where the exercise routine is the key and it has to it has to add value to your life. And if it's not and it's distracting, then it's time to reevaluate how you're doing the training.
So how many times have you talked to a triathlete and they're saying, "Oh, I have to get my run in this afternoon.
Yeah,
I have to ride tomorrow." You
it's an
don't
easy
have to.
trap. Yeah, it's an easy trap.
Like, yeah, you're choosing to,
Hmm.
right? I would like to.
Yeah.
I really have tried hard to change my vernacular around that.
Hmm.
Oh, I have to get to the pool. No, I get to get to
Yeah.
I get to go to the pool, right?
Hmm.
And I think when we change the verbiage around it, it actually makes maybe even like I'll circle us around back to the family,
Hmm.
right? And back to your support system.
Yeah.
When you're saying I have to do something,
Yeah.
now
Hmm.
you have to do that family stuff.
Hmm.
You have to probably do the work stuff,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't want to lose your job because then you can't afford your triathlon anymore,
Hmm.
right? You get to do the triathlon.
That's right.
And I think if we change that verbiage, I think it's a real positive thing. Now, if you got a jerk coach like me, my coach is making me do this. Okay, that's different.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, that's great. And it changes the perception of other people about you when you're saying, "Oh, this is always such a hard workout," or it's always you throw in these negative terms that well, they may not seem negative, but they can come across as negative where you're focusing on the hard part. Whereas, you have a hard workout, it's enjoyable. You feel good. You feel refreshed afterwards. And yeah, it does influence people around you as well. If they always hear you talking about having to do something, you're spot on. And then maybe they look at it and say, well, this isn't any fun for you. Why would it be fun for me to have you doing this?
it's interesting. I don't sleep on a plane. I've never been able to, and so I didn't sleep on the plane right over here. So I listen to podcasts, and I listened to this podcast that was talking about FTP
Hmm.
and biking specifically at FTP, and how their theory is that everyone does these really short FTP tests. So like the 8-minute test, the ramp test,
Yeah.
and for the most part, they overestimate their FTP, but they like that number, right? So it overestimates it and it says it's 280. Let's hypothetically say it's 280.
Yeah.
This was the number that they gave,
Hmm.
but you're really at 260.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to do your FTP work. Let's say you're doing like just sub threshold work. So you're at like 270, let's say.
Hmm.
Well, now you're over your threshold, and that's actually can be really, really hard on you,
Right.
right? If you're sub threshold, you actually should be able to enjoy it. Like you should be
Mhm.
able to work hard and actually
Yeah,
enjoy it. Over threshold, especially if you're trying to go for a long period of time,
yeah.
it can be very negative. And so it was an interesting thing. It was basically the premise of this was like, you really need to underestimate your FTP rather than overestimate it.
Mhm.
Even though you want to have this high FTP because it sounds sexy,
Yeah.
it's probably not real.
Right.
And so it's interesting. Some of the software that I use, the WKO5 in particular, it actually does modeling to
Mm.
determine what your FTP is based off of like you can
Yeah.
say the last 90 days. What do you estimate my FTP is? And it always is lower than what people think their FTP is,
Yeah. Right.
right? But that's the number I use when I build their training programs. And
Mm.
so hopefully when they're doing their like sub FTP stuff or even over FTP stuff, it's not as negative. But they don't always like it when I like, hey, your FTP is 240. No, it's 270.
Yeah.
I did
Right.
a I did the ramp test. Remember? I'm like, yeah, it's not really like.
You
Could,
need a
could you
different word
really?
for it. You need a
Yeah,
different word for it, not FTP.
yes,
Let that
yeah,
FTP patch, or badge, exist somewhere, but you need a
exactly.
FTP real or something.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Zwift has started. I don't know if you know this, but they've changed the way they categorize racing, and
Mm,
it's based off of a power duration curve, which
okay.
is basically what WKO 5 does as well. Is it basically takes a whole bunch of your data and generates a power duration curve, and then it also estimates your FTP.
Mm-hmm.
And mine is spot on to WKO 5,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
and it's not where I want it to be. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's like right now, it's 240 watts,
Mm-hmm.
which is not where I want it to be at all. Because I can
Mm-hmm.
look. It also tells me my best ever, which is like 290,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, I'm 50 watts below where I'd really like to be, but it's real,
Yeah.
and I know it's real because I've been doing some like longer threshold stuff, and I'm like, yeah, like 240 feels okay. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm working hard, but I go over it, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel so good. And why I'm kind of going at this is that this can create a real negative thing around training. And I don't know how we kind of got on this, but the holidays. But once again, training should be, especially this time of year, be relatively enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And we need to talk about the power duration curve. We have not done a
Yes.
podcast on that. So that
Okay, let's put that in the pipeline. I love
let's
that.
put that because that is such an interesting curve to look at, and you can generate it a couple of different ways from different data sets. I love this idea of taking all the data that you have or some window of data and then creating that power duration curve. But on the positive of the holiday, I think other big message that we both advocate is consistent training. And I think this is
Yep.
where we just need to be careful that people don't misinterpret what consistent training mean. It doesn't mean miss, a day is negative. Sometimes actually your training is going to benefit by taking a day off or doing just a 15-minute exercise session
Yeah.
versus an hour, just something that is keeping you moving and mentally healthy.
Yeah. No, I'm of the mantra that like I want to do something every day, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be swim, bike, run.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can go
Right.
for an hour hike, and that's my thing for the day. Like because I really believe that movement is medicine.
Yeah.
And after my surgery, and I was sitting on the couch for 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I realized even more like movement is every day I'm alive. I want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like you're just taking the stairs, and you're going.
Yep.
You make your backpack a little heavier.
Yeah, that's right.
You fit in. And you're like, I accomplished something today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I think
And
that's that, and you can do that in the holidays.
I think when most of us travel, we probably have some type of Ironman backpack that we're wearing or some type of triathlon backpack. And so it's always
You
good.
you know I did today.
When you're going up the stairs at McCarran Airport or somewhere, you've got your backpack on. It says you do triathlons and you're walking up the stairs or down the stairs. And I think that's an easiest way in traveling to work and exercise, even on a travel day. Seeking out stairs is really some good value.
So if I travel alone, this is one of the little things I do, and I don't know if you do this too. I don't sit down at the airport.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I walk.
Yeah.
Like if I, you get there, I get there early. I just walk the terminal
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because I know I'm going to be sitting in an airplane for like maybe if I'm going to the East Coast, I'm sitting for 5 hours.
Yeah.
So if I can get like, and I got my little step counter on my watch. I'm like, okay, like can I get 5,000 steps in before the plane leaves?
Yeah.
Like, and it's funny because I do circles and they get smaller and smaller the closer it gets
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Right.
But
Right.
once again, it's like I'm trying to make the best of the situation. Like I got to travel.
Yeah.
Probably not gonna be able to train today. So, do you do stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't take the moving walkways. I always walk next
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, I don't probably do as much walking when I'm waiting for to board the flight as you do. But yeah, I love the idea. Just you walk everywhere in the airport.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like, especially in Vegas, like, sometimes I get there really early, someone's dropping me off or whatever.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I try and go to every gate.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm telling like go to like every gate. And
Hmm.
because you can get all the way over to the international terminal and like you can get, you know, I can get like 10,000 steps almost in
Yeah,
just by
yeah,
going if you go to
right,
every gate. Right.
right. Mm.
So, yeah. So,
Uh,
anyways, that's a little bit of advice,
yeah,
and a little bit of holiday information. We probably could podcast next week, right? We're December 15th, so we got next week we can do.
yeah.
Um,
I'll be back
I
in
don't know
Vegas.
where I'm going to be.
Oh no.
I literally don't know where I'm going to be in Portugal. I just don't
Oh,
know where in
all
Portugal
right.
I'll be
Awesome.
next weekend. But yeah, we'll connect next week. And hey, John, have a safe trip back.
And
And
you enjoy your London trip there near UK.
thank you. Yeah, we're excited. We're actually going to go see a English Premier Soccer League game tomorrow.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so we're seeing Chelsea and Sheffield United.
Nice.
So that'll be
Are you getting t-shirts for one team or the other?
on the tickets when you buy them, it says you cannot wear the opposing
Uh-huh.
fans' colors,
Yeah.
and the opposing fans are black and red, and of course Marie's jacket is red, mine's black.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
we went and we got like
Yeah.
we got knitted hats. They're blue and
Awesome.
we got the Chelsea hats and we got Chelsea scarves, and so we're gonna fit in.
Awesome. Oh, that's gonna be
Yeah.
great.
So we're gonna have fun. All right. Hey John, safe travels, and we will see you next week.
Sounds great. Good talking.
Yeah, you too. Bye.